It's time to continue counting down who I believe are the top 50 Danganronpa characters. We're now officially in the top 20, and along with it, we have a new screen for loading of the next character. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and make sure to like it and subscribe if you enjoyed. As I already said with Ryoma earlier in the list, you do not judge Danganronpa characters by their appearances. I thought, and still think, that Sakura Ogami's goal to become the strongest human alive was kind of out there. But for someone with that goal, Sakura is by no means a cold and hard-hearted character, like she looks like. She cherishes her friendship with Aoi Asahina, and she cares for the lives and well-being of everyone else in the killing game. However, case 4, where she dies, is one of the saddest cases in the series, and for good reason. Her dead body is found, and the blame keeps getting passed back and forth between every remaining candidate of the game. However, the sad truth is much more shocking. It's revealed at this point in the game that Monokuma used her to spy on the other students in the first game, but realizing that she can't disobey Monokuma, Sakura chooses to end her own life so that everyone else can survive Monokuma's wrath. This is widely believed to be the saddest death in all of Danganronpa, and it's not hard to see why. Sakura is an incredible character. Enough said. On the topic of Aoi, here she is. While she may not look like it, there was always a sense of seriousness in Aoi. For most of the game, she's kind of a comic relief character with her spunky nature, funny expressions, and love for donuts. When someone is killed, on the other hand, she clicks into a new gear, and while she's not the most useful character in the game, particularly not compared to Mikoto or Kyoko, she tries her best. As odd as it sounds, this is particularly evident in Sakura's case, which we just discussed, although in that case she tries to lead everyone away from the truth of the suicide as opposed to towards it. Although, this is primarily because Monokuma tricked her into believing Sakura had killed herself due to the other's actions. All else I can say is, Aoi is by far the series' most trustworthy side character, appreciating the bonds with her friends, and taking the killing game very, very seriously, which is what everyone else should do. I had someone in the comments of the last video relieved over the fact that Ishimaru made it into the top 20, and really hoped that he'd make it into the top 10. He's definitely deserving of a top 10 spot, but unfortunately there are a few things that put him down, which is why he just barely scrapes the top 20. Why, oh why did this guy kick the bucket? With Mondo's death, and how somehow he went Ultra Instinct afterwards when he finally got over it, I was seriously under the impression that he would make it to the end. Nope, he was killed by Hifumi under the control of Celeste. I think Kiyotake Ishimaru was one of the two characters in the game that didn't deserve to die, the other being Chihiro. Although, the reason I can see is pretty clear. His death is meant to signify that despite the fact that he's the ultimate moral compass, morals mean nothing in a game of deceit and murder. I think he had a hell of a lot of potential to be an excellent character though. One of my least favourite parts of Game 1 Case 3 was when they killed off this awesome character, but because they did and everything else I've discussed, Taka gets no higher than this. Case 2 of the first game is my favourite case of that game, and half the reason that it's so amazing is because of this guy. I love Mondo. I love it in games when the tough guy, who just so happens to be the leader of a biker gang, actually has a heart of gold and in actuality is kinda soft. Mondo is such a character. One of my absolute favourite parts of Danganronpa 1 was Mondo's relationship with both Taka and Chihiro, and it shocked me that Mondo ended up killing Chihiro, as I would never have suspected him initially. This just made his already depressing death even sadder for me, and Taka's reaction just made it worse. However, despite the fact that he's incredibly brash and easily angered, Mondo is one of the first game's most likable characters who has some of the most funny scenes in the whole game. While we're on the topic of bad boys, why don't we talk about Danganronpa 2's bad boy? He was originally going to be a lot higher on the list, barely missing out of the top 20, but I realised, no, you didn't give him nearly enough credit. So, he's now here. There isn't a single character in Danganronpa 2 that experiences as much character growth as Fuyuhiko Kuzuryu. When the killing game starts, Fuyuhiko is nothing more than a bratty mafia kid. He doesn't do much to help in Case 1, but knowing his childhood friend and lifelong bodyguard, Peko Pekoyama, was the killer in Case 2, and that her reason for killing Mahiru was to protect him, Fuyuhiko tried to protect Peko, but ultimately failed. He got caught in Peko's execution, and after he survived it, he became a much more contempt and likeable character. He lost his grouchy personality along with his right eye, and became one of the second game's greatest characters. He is so helpful, and he is just one of the most admirable characters in the whole series. Also, despite the fact that he's more well known for voicing Kokichi in the series, Derek Stephen Prince does an amazing job with Fuyuhiko in the second game. Allow me to issue out a warning to everyone who watches the video beyond this point. The number 15 spot on this list is going to annoy the hell out of everyone who watches this video, because I know that there are going to be an exceptional number of characters who believe that this person here doesn't deserve to be this high on the list. But I have my reasons, I assure you. Without further ado, let's get into number 15. Who is this character I'm referring to, you may ask? It's none other than this person. Don't leave. Whoa. Let me explain. Chiaki is number 15. Pretty high on the list for the same reason as Maki. That I don't feel as strong about her as most do. She is widely believed to be the best character, or at least best girl, in the whole series. Unfortunately, I don't agree. I won't deny that she's an excellent character, and she's by far the cutest girl in the series. Seeing her die was sad, both in Danganronpa 2 and Danganronpa 3 the anime, or at least Danganronpa 2 would have been sad if her execution wasn't awesome. I love her personality, and her free time events are also cute, and she's kind of relatable to me, since I myself am a bit of an antisocial school kid who loves video games. What puts Chiaki down a bit is her severe lack of character. She gets some good moments throughout the game, but while she's incredibly helpful, Nagito, the antagonistic character of that game, does more for the trials than she does. There isn't really much else I can say. She's not bad, which is why she's number 15, but the reason she misses out on the top 10 is because of a severe lack of character development in the second game. She was great in Danganronpa 3, the anime, don't get me wrong, but it's Danganronpa 2, the game that she was introduced in, that puts her down a little bit. I am very, very sorry. We finally get to talk about our protagonist characters, but unfortunately for this one, first is the worst. That by no means implies that I dislike Mikoto, or at least it's not meant to imply that I dislike Mikoto. Frankly, I love this little dude, because I personally find him more relatable. He's in a bit of a tougher spot than Hajime too, since he actually has a talent, but it pales in comparison to his peers. When you consider just how much despair Mikoto has experienced in his life, it makes him a very admirable protagonist. Starting from the Despair Academy all the way to the event of Danganronpa 3, he overcomes it all with a smile on his face. For someone who seems so plain, he's not what he seems, and in his own ultimate lucky student, or rather, ultimate hope way, he's actually kind of a badass. However, he's a bit of a wimp to start off with, and he's too afraid to make snarky comments about his peers, which is something that Hajime does frequently. And speaking of Hajime... While Danganronpa 2 is probably my favourite game of the three games, I think Hajime is on about the same level of Mikoto in terms of a protagonistic value. That excludes Komaru from Ultra Despair Girls. That by no means implies I don't like him, like I said with Mikoto already. In fact, he's super interesting. His backstory that he spends a majority of the game trying to figure out is one of the most dark backstories in the series, and the fact that he's the secret mastermind of Danganronpa 2 is an amazing plot twist. His relationship with all the other islanders is really nice too. If only I could figure out what's up with that hair. One more thing I should add though, on the topic of his relationship with the islanders, is that Hajime is probably the funniest protagonist, who enjoys making snarky comments on the little things that his fellow students say quite frequently. Although, speaking of the dark plot twist, I will very, very happily give Izuru Kamakura, Hajime's dark counterpart, an honourable mention on this list. He isn't able to make the list primarily because he's not really his own character, but still, I feel I should talk about him here. For some reason, it seems like all the Danganronpa protagonists seem to have a female sidekick. Hajime has Chiaki, and I guess Shuichi has Kaede, but I don't know. Anyway, Mikoto has this person, Kyoko Kirigiri, and my god is she cool. Like Rantaro in the third game, you spend a lot of the game trying to figure out what her talent is. But unlike Rantaro or even Hajime, it's kind of obvious. She is the ultimate detective, just like Shuichi Saihara in the third game, though she did it first, so she's by there more important. I'm kidding. But it makes sense when you consider how good she is at solving the cases. Also, similarly to Maki in the third game towards characters like Kaito, while she seems cold and hard on the outside, on the inside, she has a lot of affection for those she considers her friends and remorse for the deceased, particularly Mikoto, shown when she sacrifices herself to save him in Danganronpa 3. Also, their ship, Mikoto and Kyoko, is my favourite ship in the whole series, but that's besides the point. I think I've made it pretty clear so far that the third case in all three games is, more often than not, my least favourite case from those games, and Danganronpa 2 is the same. However, the culprit behind that case didn't upset me as much as the other two did. It upset a lot of other people, I'll admit, but for me, I see good in Mikan. Mikan is a character in which my opinion has kind of declined over time, I'll admit, but I still really like her. My main issue with her, though, is how she is needlessly sexualized at some point in whatever adaptation she appears in, Danganronpa 2, Danganronpa 3, or outside of whatever. She was the culprit behind Ibuki and Hyoko's murder in Game 2 Case 3, and that took me by surprise. Her showing her true colours was one of the greater plot twists in the series, particularly for a third case. She's generally kind of funny in her shy nature. I mean, just look at that sprite. And she's also pretty adorable. Her past is kind of sad, and the fact that she can't distinguish bullying from friendship is depressing. But while people believe she was kind of ruined in her final moments, it wasn't nearly as bad as Kyo. I still like her, and I think she's deserving to just about miss out the top 10. But from here on out, it's all uphill. Everyone in the top 10 deserves to be there, in my opinion, for a good reason, and I hope you're excited to see who actually gets there in the end.